Tom's Creek Family Farm in Wayne, West Virginia. So the farm has been in the family for over 100 years, bought and sold between. It was a big pasture, so a lot of our maples are young maples because this was all pasture, all 30-ish acres we have here. So a lot of the young maples started up and have grown, and are almost, some of them are close to 50, 60 years old. So we're relatively young in the forest. And we started this about 6 years ago, making syrup off of a small co-op meeting, and then we had another local producer give us a quick tutorial on how maple syrup's made at a meeting, and his name was Rich Flanagan. And then he told me, he said, once you start, it becomes a hobby that's really addicting, and it has. So maple's always been done traditionally, just bucket collection and then boiling it over a fire or a stove. The RO systems and the modern technology was developed several years ago, and we're just adapting to it because you have to adapt to save time in this industry. So reverse osmosis does exponentially save us time boiling, because it does cut the water off before we even get to the evaporating part of it. So reverse osmosis is the process of permeation membranes, of squeezing the water or the sap through a membrane, so you get a permerate, which is clean water, off one side of it, and then you get a concentrate, which is the saps, minerals, and sugars that we then process in the evaporator. On a good day, we will process 600 gallons of sap on 183 taps, 185 taps. So at our little evaporator, only does 10 to 15 hours, gallons per hour of evaporation rate. So you take 600 divided by 10, you have 60 hours worth of time. With the reverse osmosis system, we can cut that time down to 6, because we can cut that much water off. We can go from 600 gallons to 60 gallons of concentrate. So the system starts here. We filter everything coming into the RO system. Comes up, it's a high pressure pump, and then we have 3 membranes in series. And we can get approximately 300 gallons an hour of separation. So what happens is you have a concentrate here that either flows back into the tank to recycle upon itself to cut the water even further, and then we have clean water that comes up and we run through a UV filter to sterilize it, that we store for future use to clean our equipment and flush the system after we use it every day. This was a homemade unit. With a little bit of a background from our producers here in the state, we all kind of collectively think and come up with ideas. But you can buy these commercially off the shelf, and they're really simple to operate. So yeah, a normal operation any operation could adapt this technology at any time. Plus there's even a smaller version for hobbyists as well. There is some speculation of old timers saying that if you don't do it the traditional way, it's not real maple syrup, but modern technology, it's been proven in university studies that it doesn't change the flavor. It just makes us more efficient. And time is money, especially small operation like us and not being a full-time farmer. You have to maximize time. The West Virginia Maple Syrup Association is just a bunch of producers here in the state that we all get together and we collab. We meet once a year, and we share technology and methods and have taste testings and stuff and compare each other's products, and especially the different terrains in the state. Everybody's different. So we all kind of talk to one another, figure out when we're tapping, what's the weather been like, and just coordinate with one another too. So the RO system is actually fed by this big 600-gallon tank, and that's everything that comes off the mountain from the taps into this big tank. So the RO system is fed through this tank, and then once it's run and we get to the concentration levels that we can achieve, we feed it to this larger tank here on the wall, which feeds the evaporator tank. This is the concentrate tank that after it runs through the RO system, the concentration, sometimes we can achieve close to 18% bricks before we put into the evaporator, and this is what feeds the evaporator. And the evaporator is fed at a really slow rate consistently, because as you're cooking, this is actually a baffled pan, so it flows in here, starts here, flows up, over, and back. And as it's going that method, it's getting thicker and the bricks level is rising to make syrup. and then eventually it comes to this front pan, which is called the syrup pan, and then we draw off the syrup here when it reaches 66, 67 bricks, or 219, 220, depending on the elevation and barometric pressure for the day, is when it's syrup. Bricks is concentration of sugar to water. You see that in brewing, you see that in mapling, you see that in actually big industrial sugar makers. It's a unit of measurement. So that's pretty consistent, because when you reach 66 bricks, it's considered syrup and it's shelf stable. When you look at a sugar bush, as we call it, you look for pretty much any species of maple. And predominantly what we have here is about 60% of our taps are red maples. We found that they run good, but the season ends shorter because the warm spells you have causes them to bloom. And then the flavor profile completely changes and becomes to where you can't use it. So any species of maple, and you're looking for a certain size. You don't want to tap really anything under 10 inches. And that's kind of the industry standard, because you don't want to hurt the tree. And what we do is there's several methods of collection, which is the bucket method or wine bags. So if a small hobbyist wants to do it, or some of these traditional guys will actually have horse-drawn sleighs when there's snow, and they collect buckets that usually they hang off the tree. What we maintain here, and we're blessed with it in Appalachia, is small hills, so we use 3/16 tubing. Now the other industries up in north use 5/16, but they have a lot of mechanical assisted vacuum to get their production. Here we have found that with the 3/16 tubing, we can achieve natural vacuum through the droplet size of sap in the ID of the tube. And as long as you have at least 15 or 20 foot of elevation drop from your last tap, which is one of these, to the line or tank you go to, you can achieve 20 inches of vacuum plus up to a certain point. We've actually seen it go up and over 15 feet of elevation from one side of the ridge up and over to another, with sap ladders for roadways too. So it's pretty neat how it works. Now with 3/16, it does have its disadvantages compared to the other ones, but still it's been pretty positive for us. So what you do is you find a position, and like this was tapped several years ago, so this is an old tap hole. You want to move over and down or over and up depending on where, because whenever you tap an old thing, you have dead sapwood, and it becomes an area that doesn't actually produce very well. So you want to go for fresh sapwood, and so you go up and over. And that depends on also your method of tapping the woods. Because you want to keep it the same, so you know typically where you tap from year to year. You can kind of pinpoint and know where's good wood to be tapped. We use a special bit that is a high fluted bit that cleans the hole as you tap it. And then what we use is a small wooden mallet, because it doesn't take much pressure. And then we tap this in until we hear a thud into the tap hole. That allows to where you can get in and it seals the tap hole. It doesn't allow it to leak, but it doesn't drive it in to plug up the hole or damage the spout by folding it, because these are made of plastic. So our seasons are relatively short, and they're pretty much January 1st, we're ready to go here in the southern part of here in the state. The boys up in the Highland near Canaan and Beckley, they're usually mid-February, sometimes when they're tapping too. So our topography really does change quite a bit. So we have people starting early and starting late. Even some of our friends in Kentucky even tap in December. So it all depends. And you're looking for weather of long freezes beforehand, and then you want cycles of thawing during the day and freezing at night. And I like it to get to 27 at least, and then up to the no higher than low 40s during the day. And what happens is that creates the run effect in the tree. As it moves sap up and down the trunk, it pressurizes the tree, and that's what makes the sap run, is actually it drips out and flows down the tubing. Like I said, the weather's big dependent. So if you have long days of warm weather and then you get a freeze, sometimes they don't run. You need a couple of days of really cold weather for it to run. On season for us is maybe a month, possibly 2 if we're really fortunate. And before and after, there is line maintenance that's going on during the season. And also you are cleaning and removing the taps at the end of season. And we actually sanitize the lines every year so we can reuse the lines and the taps so we don't have waste as much as generated from other methods that we had done in the past. We found that we can actually clean the lines and reuse the taps and still achieve our efficiencies. So we also give classes with future generations as well. As it's hard to identify maples in fall, as the leaves are gone. There's certain traits that you look for in maple identification. But predominantly, if you can go out and mark your trees with ribbon during the summer when you know the leaf is, that's the best way to identify them. But like I said, we do have classes that we have periodically throughout the year with future generations, and that helps with actually just syrup 101. Start from tree to pan. The original syrup, like I said, there's nothing added. Maple is a pure product. So be that when you look on your labels, make sure it's not blended with anything. It's a pure product, which means nothing is added to it. So we have the original maple syrup here, and then we started doing flavor infusions. Bourbon barrel aging has become a very popular thing. We have a couple of distilleries in the state, and we actually partnered with Bullet Distillery in Charleston. They provided a barrel for this batch this year. And then we got to thinking the other flavors, they could do like the vanilla, this coffee bean, the smoked chipotle, which is actually, it's kind of popular. It doesn't fly off the shelves, but a lot of people use it to cook with, especially grilling, salmon, chicken, it's really good. Pork, really good too. These are all derived from the original base maple syrup. Now, the other value-added products you can do too is you can heat it to 236 degrees and whip it and make a cream out of it, which is really kind of an icing consistency. And then you can take it to 260 degrees and make granulated sugar out of it. So, and from this granulated sugar, you can make other things like maple cotton candy, which maple cotton candy is a blend of regular cane sugar and maple sugar. Traditional syrup by itself, everybody just says, it's boring. Adding flavor, complexity to different things gets people intrigued. It's a really good thing. Plus, that premium product, you get more money out of it too. So it helps make this more sustainable for us. And other producers in the state have done the same thing. You have to.
Mm-hmm. So maybe instead of just buying one bottle of maple syrup, they might walk away with 6 bottles or 6 products.
Yeah, instead of spending $10 on a bottle of syrup, then they look and they say all these different flavors, and then it adds up really quick. West Virginia Maple Days consist of 2 days in every year, and maple is always the first crop of the year, so that's something to remember in agriculture. And it's always the 3rd weekend in February and March. And this year was February 18th and then March 18th. What that is all the producers who like to have people come in and visit their operations. Now, that also provides education for everybody and also provides opportunities for the producers to sell their products. And with that being said, I've had people from Colorado come visit, fly out and come visit just to do maple dough with us. And then they went to several other people, producers in the state as well. But you never know who you get to see. And then also education is the biggest part of what we do with Maple Days. Our sugar shack is inspected by the Department of Ag, West Virginia Department of Ag. He comes down, the inspector comes down, make sure that we have our data tracking controls, make sure our control allotments, checks our syrup or bricks consistencies, and just make sure the cleanliness of our building is up to snuff. You don't want to make syrup in a nasty environment, nor do you want to make it in any other nasty area. So cleaning, sinks, hand sanitation, procedures for all that equipment, and procedures on how you do things is another thing that's good. Labeling is another requirement. So if you have to sell anything, it has to be approved by the State Department. And really, it's just simple. They really help you along the way to do that.
Welcome to the West Virginia Department of Agriculture's Homesteading series. In this series, WVDA planning coordinators collaborate with producers around the state to share the most up-to-date information on food prep, raising livestock, self-sufficient living skills, and much more for homesteading in the Mountain State. Their goal is to help people of all skill levels increase their knowledge for sustainable living or expand their farm business. The business development staff work to grow West Virginia agribusinesses and economy. West Virginia has a vibrant ecosystem of communities, small farms, and innovative organizations that support the agricultural economy. Our team's goal is to reach out with tools and partnerships to make potential businesses aware of the services and support the West Virginia Department of Agriculture and its partners can provide. Additionally, the business development team oversees our West Virginia Grown and Veterans and Heroes to Agriculture programs. WVDA planning coordinators act as local liaisons, coordinators, and facilitators helping develop agriculture projects and assist agribusinesses around the state. They participate in economic and business development efforts while addressing food insecurities and building resiliency in local communities. West Virginia Grown is the state's premier branding program for agriculture products. The West Virginia Grown logo indicates to buyers the product was grown and/or processed with quality ingredients in the Mountain State and that their dollars are going right back into their communities. We also offer marketing opportunities for West Virginia producers through our West Virginia Grown program. This program is free, and members gain access to the West Virginia Grown brand logo for labeling use on any eligible products. If you become a member, you'll be included in our producer database, our West Virginia Grown directory, market bulletin, and social media platforms. The business development team also includes the Veterans and Heroes to Agriculture program staff. Their priority is to provide support to veterans, law enforcement, firefighters, and first responders transitioning into agriculture via education, scholarships, mentorship opportunities, marketing, technical and business development support, and navigating available resources. The program seeks to further promote the development of agricultural industries, products, and marketing opportunities across the state.